people in their 40s and 50s with no children. How does it feel? Story 1, I definitely think it was the right choice for me. Gotta be honest with myself, I'm a little lazy and selfish, and while I think I might have been a decent dad, I don't think I would have been a happy one. Story 2, on the one hand, I seriously envy my friends who have 2 lovely sons who are now in high school. On the other hand, I'm glad that I'm not my sister and brother-in-law who have 2 spawns of Satan who are 4 and 6. Edit, who would have thought that my top comment ever would be calling my nephews spawns of Satan? They're absolutely a high-energy handful and frustrating to deal with right now. But they're good kids, and I love them to bits. I just moderate my time with them to save my sanity. Story 3, honestly, sort of sad, but not overwhelming. I was always ambivalent about having kids. I would have been up for it if my partner wanted them, but he didn't, and I was totally fine not having them. I still don't feel strongly about it. But that partner and I broke up a few years back, and now that I'm in my early 40s, it's just very weird to realize that, well, that window is probably closed. I mean, as far as I know, I could still get pregnant, but my current partner and I aren't in a place to be looking at that. And since we'd really have to try, now, I'm accepting that it's just not going to happen. So yeah, there's some kind of grief, but it's a weird sort of grief because I never actively wanted kids and was always perfectly comfortable with the idea of not having them. It's more grief over losing the potential of having them in the future, I guess. Edit, since so many people have said, why not just adopt? I'll add that I am adopted closed infant adoption, and though I love being adopted for many reasons I explain in this comment thread, I've always known I would never myself adopt. Everyone is aware of adoption as an option, but it's a unique journey that should be chosen on its own merits, and not every person is suited to be an adoptive parent, and also, I still don't actively want kids. Story 4, I never once had the tingling feeling of wanting to become a parent. I simply don't have that want-desire responsibility to raise a child, especially in this timeline we're living in. Then I met my wife, who thinks the exact same way. We both love traveling, backpacking, camping, etc. It's freeing knowing we can get up in a split second and go. Story 5, it's weird BC, all your child having friends, which is most everyone are completely consumed by their kids, so you don't relate as well with others. But also it's great BC, I have extra money, and I can spend on whatever the F I please. Oh, and I have extra time to do whatever I please. But sometimes I want to do something with my best friend, but she can't BC of her kid, so there's positives and negatives. Story 6, I can't even take care of myself, let alone have to take care of another living person. So I just do what I want with my life and have a great time doing it. It's pretty awesome. Story 7, pretty great. My wife turned out to be a narcissistic abuser, so I divorced her. 1. No kids that would have suffered from her behavior. 2. No kids that would have suffered through the divorce. I'm more than happy to be the silly, fun uncle to my brother's kids. Story 8, for a while, I was a fence-sitter. It wasn't until 30 that I realized it was even a choice and not an inevitability. In U.S. culture, marriage and children are a common life script. It took time for me to acknowledge that that script isn't a good fit for me, and it didn't solidify until my late 30s. For a while, it was money and security, as well as environmental concerns and overpopulation, but it was also simply a lack of real desire to be a parent. I've often wished we could live multiple lives so that we could try all the things, but in this life I don't really want children. That was hard for me to grapple with in some ways, because I was blessed with great parents, and my mother was a fantastically caring role model, but my biggest reason for thinking about parenthood was fear of regret. That's not enough. Parents should really want their children. This is a whole other human being you are bringing into this world. They deserve to be wanted and loved and properly cared for. You're responsible for them. And it might not turn out roses. Parental anxiety doesn't magically dissipate after 18 years, either for the rest of your life. You are a parent. There are also a lot of physical things that can go wrong with pregnancy, especially the pregnant person, which are not talked about enough. Our society holds a very rose-colored glasses view of pregnancy as glowing and natural. It really messes with people's bodies, not to mention postpartum mental health. A lot of folks will argue that not having children is selfish. This is puzzling, because those same folks will say in the next breath that having children ensures you won't die lonely. If you need to be a parent because that feels like your destiny and you're full of love, that's one thing. But if you're having children to safeguard your own future now, that is selfish, not to mention the resources impact on the planet, etc., etc. If you're unhappy, parenthood won't fix it. If you're lonely, parenthood won't fix it. If you're following a life script in a daze, trying to check all the right boxes, take a moment to examine your reasons. If you want to be a parent, that's great. Best of love and luck. It's possible to live a comfortable life full of love, while doing what you want, while taking time to give back to your community, while staying open and curious, and generally living a good life without adding parenthood into the mix. Story 9, I wanted to have kids, but I couldn't. So sometimes I'm a bit sad seeing friends and colleagues having children, but it's nothing I can change, so I'm usually not thinking much about it. And sometimes I'm also a bit glad I don't have kids, seeing how the world goes to, and no one seems to care to make the necessary changes so that their children or grandchildren will still have a livable world. Story 10, can't believe there are people claiming child-free people don't care for the state of the only planet we call home. Of course we care. We have nephews, nieces, and family that will have kids that we care about deeply. I wasn't even going to comment, because I'm only 34 without kids, but you weirdos with your assumptions can be annoying. Not having kids is amazing for some and sad for others. Story 11, hard. I feel like I missed out on the best parts of adulthood. First steps. Taking my kid to school, coaching Little League, school plays, dinner table conversations, family vacations, helping them when they're hurt, Santa Claus, seeing them grow, arguments and apologies, grandchildren. It just never materialized for me. It's like I wasn't worthy of that gift of even finding a wife to build a family. Sucks hard many days. I could put on a brave face, but deep down it's crushing. 48, one sister who also has no kids. Story 12, after numerous miscarriages, we were in our 40s with no children. We would both do anything to have had children. If we had a kid now, I'd be 68 when they graduated from high school. Story 13, I wanted children, but my uterus decided that ejecting them would be a better idea. I sometimes grieve the idea of being a parent. Then I snap back to reality when the reality of my life makes me not fit to be a parent. I am on the disability pension for MS. I am legally blind and cannot drive and have to depend on others to do things for me. I could not provide what I feel is a fulfilling life for a child. I get to sleep in, I get to love my cats, and be the weird aunt to my nibblings instead. It is what it is, and I am at peace with it. Story 14, as someone who has wanted to have children but has fertility issues, it's been soul-crushing. Yeah, I have freedom, but the only thing worse than being disappointed in myself is watching my wife struggle. Having and raising kids is all she's ever wanted, and I've been unable to give her that. Hoping to adopt, but it's an incredibly lonely and vulnerable experience, especially if you aren't willing to go through a religious agency. Story 15, I never wanted kids. It was worst nightmare to have them. I did everything I could to avoid them, and I'm very happy to have done so. Now, I just need my work to respect my off time and my life will be perfect. I have more spending power than everyone I know, and I could do whatever I like and whenever I want. You could not pay me enough to have made the other choice. Story 16, pretty rough. I only started to feel better and come out of the sadness when I took full responsibility for choosing not to have children. My first partner didn't want kids until he was 40. My first husband was abusive and irresponsible. My boyfriends after that were non-committal. My second husband is amazing, but has kids, had the snip, and felt he was too old to adopt or foster. The reality is, I chose these partners. I've got lovely adult stepchildren, and I'm an auntie and godmother. I've fostered rescue animals for 20 years. It's not the same, but you can't always get what you want, as the song goes. When I have feelings about it, I have to take it on the chin. Story 17, awesome. My life is amazing. Fixed at 26, am now 46. Honestly, it's mixed. I see my friends and family and generally how happy they are. I reflect on my own childhood and how great the moments with my family were. I've watched my grandmother go into assisted living. I know how horrible most places are. How much work my parents did to ensure she had top-notch care and wasn't abused or forgotten about. My biggest worry is what happens to me when I hit 70, 80, or older. Who do I have left to help me navigate serious health complications, going into a home, or disastrous issues such as dementia or Alzheimer's? Society will throw me away because I don't have family that is willing to fight in my behalf the same way I will for my parents. I asked the same question to the other dinks I'm friends with, and few of them ever consider these issues. Lately, I regret not having kids of my own. I feel like I missed out on a ton. I'm well off working in the FANG space. Money isn't a concern, but I find myself dwelling on this more. Story 18, I have the freedom and funds to take off for a few weeks to travel anywhere in the world when I feel like it. Did do that a few times already, and it was definite experience every time. Or, if I feel like it, do nothing at all. I could do whatever the I want, and that's priceless to me. Will my life be better or worse with kids? Hard to say TBH, but the freedom alone I have right now makes me feel like it's better than not. Story 19, I'm 47 now, and it's like dying a little every day. It's a loss. People refuse to let you grieve. My husband and I are both infertile. We couldn't afford insurance, doesn't cover IVF in our state IVF. He took meds for nearly a year to get his sperms count high enough for IUI. We had one attempt, failed meds to make me ovulate. I have COS. He started having scary side effects from the meds, and WR had to stop. This was 9 years ago, shortly after his sister got pregnant with her first child and made sure to tell me she didn't want to be pregnant. shortly after that my youngest sister got pregnant and whined to me about how it took 3 months to get pregnant. Then she made my life the entire time she was pregnant with unhinged threats of me never seeing her kids again because I had a reaction to the flu shot. She also told me to it up when I called her crying about the infertility diagnosis. Other people have it worse. She said we couldn't afford at the time to adopt. The attorney told us $60K was average and would be on a waiting list for years. Plus, once we hit 40, our chances of being selected were slim after the foster care classes and the horror stories, plus being told no infants or toddlers to adopt. We backed away for foster care. Family wasn't supportive of us adopting because of the issues another family member had. Now I'm 47, my older nieces and nephews have kids, my youngest sister has kids, my friend for school are grandparents. I regret every single day we didn't go bankrupt trying to have a family. Now we make enough to make payments on a loan to adopt, but I'm too old to be selected by a birth mother. POS has ruined my body. Insurance won't cover anything to treat it, and $1,500 a month for the meds is still unaffordable. In my perimenopause and have started ovulating naturally for the first time, the irony and the fun aunt. We take the little nieces and nephews places and buy them fun toys. My Sil is broke with 4 kids, 3 for marriage, 1 by nature, and expects us to do the expensive stuff they can't afford with her kids. We do, but it's weird knowing how much she hates me. She sees us as a way for her kids to get to do stuff. Since we don't have kids, we are expected to do all of the elder care. I have kids, and a job excuse is my youngest sister's favorite go-to. When dad needs something, she's 5 minutes away in an hour, but 90 of the time she says since she has kids, she can't help him out. I work too. Older sister's husband has dementia, so they're spending time with the grandkids now, because soon he won't know who they are. We have money to do what we want, mostly, but we don't have any time. We do for everyone else, and are made to feel horrible if we don't. The trade-off for us is a deep longing to have kids, but no time for the freedom everyone says we have. Lately, I've been crying a lot about the whole thing. No one but my husband gives a fuck. We are just free babysitting and dad's helpers. I'm running myself ragged and on the edge of a nervous breakdown. My older sister sees it. My husband sees it, but dad and my youngest sister won't or can't. My health is affected by the stress. I look at my friends' Facebook pages with their grandkids and kids, and I think I have nothing. I hate my childless life. My husband can't even enjoy the freedom we didn't want because no one respects us or our time, and holidays are dependent on family inviting us to attend. Otherwise, it will just be us and the cats. People keep telling us we should have adopted or that we gave up too soon. Or if you couldn't afford the $60K to adopt, you are too poor to have kids, the male infertility specialist said that. I asked if he had $60K just hanging out to spend to adopt, and he was shocked at how much it was him. Not always this bitter. It starts hitting hard around Halloween and continues to be a challenge until after Christmas. This is the hardest time of the year, but I smile and hide it. I don't want to hear one more God's will, God's punishment, or you should have adopted. Nor do I want to hear take one of my monsters. You will change your mind. Fuck infertility. Edited to add, I greatly appreciate the support and kind words. Infertility is a complex and emotionally draining thing. Family dynamics is complex too. I think many families don't understand that childless couples still have lots of other responsibilities. In our case, my youngest sister is a narcissist, and my dad may also be, although less toxic. My older sister lives under the shadow of her husband of 30 years, morphing into someone she no longer knows, and who doesn't know many of us anymore, and who is actively and slowly dying. We try hard to keep the peace. Story 20. I'm happy. I love sleeping in late on Saturday mornings, not driving to tons of kids' sporting events, never have to stand on the sidelines in the cold and rain, cheering on kids, driving to kids' party after kids' party every weekend. I often hear parents moan about preparing school lunches, which is not an issue. Honestly, as a child, I never ever dreamed of being a mother. I never played with dolls, ever. I never envisioned time where I would have kids. I grew up in a very noisy house with way too many people crammed into a small space. My many siblings quickly had lots of kids as well. I've been surrounded by kids and spent a lot of my life looking after other people, cleaning, cooking, and being a general dog body. I just don't want to do that anymore. I go on decent holidays. I'm free at the weekends. I love the peace and quiet. I am very happy in my own company, and I have a very limited social battery. I don't believe I would have made a good parent. I do like kids, but I feel I've sacrificed enough of my life looking after other people, and I'm happy as I am. Story 21. I knew I'd never be fit to be a mother full-time. So I spent my 20s and 30s as a Girl Scout leader, having fun and sending the kids home at the end of the meetings. Sometimes I wish I could know what pregnancy feels like, but I'm glad I don't have a child of my own. Story 22. As a woman. Amazing. I had a hysterectomy at 25. I'm 43 now. I never wanted children, and I was told maybe you'll want one someday. I was never that kind of girl, never wanted kids. So glad I had a hysterectomy early, so I can enjoy the rest of my life without female pain. I'm not supposed to answer this question. 32M, still on the fence. These answers make me happy for the people responding, but sad for society. We've improved the world in so many ways, but made having children a major burden. A society with an inverted population pyramid is unprecedented and worrisome. Honestly, makes me more likely to want kids. Story 23, lonely and sad. I have a son somewhere. Many years ago, I was dating a woman who dumped me when she got pregnant and gave up the baby. I only found out about the baby because I got sent mail I wasn't supposed to get. The adoption was final, and I couldn't afford a lawyer. Had no rights. I can only hope they look me up someday. Worst part is most of the children in my family are suffering serious genetic problems, so I don't even know if he's okay. Story 24, I guess it feels normal. Weird question. It's not like a status or switch control. I suppose it was a good call. I would not have been a proper parent and totally unqualified to raise humans. Many say otherwise, but I know deep down I'm surprised so many other people are having kids, and I now understand why the world is the way it is, because parents are failing them and really shouldn't be raising children. Story 25, the few years I was a parent were enough to teach me. I don't want kids. As much as I love my stepkids, I do not miss the constant, never-ending panic. I was always anxious, living in poverty. I just knew I was failing them. I lived in a low-grade state of anxiety for 5 years, worrying about them all the time. I still worry about them all the time. In fact, one is currently sleeping downstairs. She's homeless. It's so much different now that they are adults. Story 26, it sucks. Kids open up a lot of things you simply miss out on if you never had them. Going to Disney World or a theme park, or even major fairs, the beach, seeing families with their kids, having a good time, birthday parties, the thrills of school activities, holidays. You get old, your friends get old, your parents pass on, everything feels a little bit hollow. You also pass on a lot of stress, problems, heartache, headaches, financial issues. But in life, you take the good with the bad, and you realize you gave up a lot of good after it's too late to do anything about it. And aging alone has zero upside to it. Nada. Story 27, I'm not sure how to answer this because I don't know what it would be like to have them. I see all my friends and siblings with kids, and I see the beautiful parts. I also see the very hard parts. I also see the people who really, really want children do everything they can conceive. I just can't ever picture putting myself through that. I do know this. I love my life, every aspect of it. I love seeing my nieces and nephews grow up. I love that I can come home and have peace and quiet and not have a single thing to attend to. I'm truly happy. This is what I wanted and it's what I got. But will I ever know how it feels opposed to having them? Nope. Story 28, well, I'm gay. So it really wasn't in the cards. I have made a great dad and have some regret. I'm a good uncle, I suppose. Every third question on Reddit seems to argue around why one isn't having kids, disliking kids, or judging others with kids. WTF is up with that. Story 29, I wanted kids. It didn't happen. It sucks not to have had that opportunity. I sometimes get caught up in some existential dread thinking about the fact that my genetic lineage stops with me and I'm leaving nothing behind as a legacy. But on the flip side, I know having kids would have been. Even as a kid, I understood that to have kids ID have to be okay with being a single parent, as even today, it seems men continue to demonstrate an inability to take equal responsibility for raising their kids. As a disabled person, it's hard enough to survive and advocate for myself without dragging a child into poverty. To advocate for them, my kids would likely be disabled too. I see friends struggling to get their SEN kids access to even basic education, and I'm glad I don't deal with that. I get to do what I want with my money and my time. I get to rest in as plenty of alone time, which I'm grateful for. I feel bitter about no opportunity, but also glad. Story 30, never really wanted kids or understood why people have them. But now in my late 40s, I realize that children serve as a distraction from your own existential crises, as mortality and other fears slowly become more prominent. Children and their youthful energy make life more interesting and worth living. If all you have around you is aging and decay, life gets very boring and depressing. Story 31, delightful, kind of shitty, took until 40 to have stability and income to afford children in my area. Now dealing with suboptimal IVF results and what feels like an increasing likelihood of it not working. Story 32, in mid-40s. People that are similar in age around me have mostly not yet teenage kids, some even toddlers' babies. As much as I've spent a second or two earlier in life thinking that it would be great to parent this hypothetical dream child, but we all know having kids is kind of a crapshoot as to what you get. I'm sincerely so glad I'm not one of these overstressed, self-neglecting due to lack of time energy. Full-time working, but also carrying 90 of caregiving and chores married, mothers around me, because I want to shoot myself. Story 33, scary. I maybe have a couple of fertile years left, but my partner doesn't really want kids I want to know how I feel about it until it's too late. I don't feel ready yet. I can't imagine growing old with never having children. I wish I had more time. Story 34, it feels sobering knowing you won't have anyone to carry on your lineage. I am an only child, and knowing you won't have anyone to care for you as you get older. Story 35, great. First of all, I don't like kids, and secondly, mentally I'm still a 16-year-old stoner. I even live like a 16-year-old stoner and have as much money as a 16-year-old stoner, so that wouldn't be a good environment to raise a child. Story 36, amazing. Just got back from a month-long work trip to the EU. Heading to Vegas next week. Then Texas for fun. Had a spur-of-the-moment drive to spend the weekend with another child-free couple in their cabin adjacent to a national park. We drank, cooked, and built a huge fire. My biggest problem before work tomorrow is working up the energy to bring some plants in, because there's a frost advisory tonight. Story 37, I have seen 15 different countries. I have all the toys a 39-year-old man-child could want. My girlfriend of 12 years is incredible. We do what we want. We may miss out on certain things, but we won't miss out on other things. Make your own choice. Good luck. Story 38, good and bad. Yeah, sure, you can do whatever you want whenever you want. You're going to save yourself $1 million that you would have spent on kids. On the other hand, my nieces and nephew are awesome, and having them in my life made me think that I upped by not having them. Too late to go back now, but if I was 10 years younger, I think I would have changed my mind. Story 39, I live vicariously through my friends and their children. I never really had an opportunity to have children because of my career. At the end of my life, there will be no one there. All the luxuries in the world will not fill the empty void of love of a family. Story 40, in my early 60s, I love not having kids. Happy for my friends that have children, but I don't for a second envy them. My GF has an adult daughter, and there's still tons of stress there. Same for my younger friends with younger kids. I know they love them and would choose the exact same path, but so would I. Story 41, I've had an especially hard time accepting it recently. I always want to be a mother, but struggled with unexplained infertility. I've had 3 early miscarriages over the years, and fertility treatments were unsuccessful and drained us financially. Now that I'm 42 and perimenopausal, it's finally sinking in that my chance at motherhood has passed. And coupled with the fact that I was recently diagnosed with a chronic and potentially terminal disease, even fostering or adopting are most likely impossible. Luckily, it's not a deal breaker for my husband, or at least that's what he says now. He's much younger than me, 33, so I often wonder if, say, 5-10 years from now, begin to have regrets about marrying someone 9 years his senior. All that said, I have very much enjoyed being the cool aunt and excellent dog mom. My niece and nephew are now both in college, and both have already pledged to keep me out of the nursing home when my husband and I get too old to live independently. Well, I know there's a lot of child-free folks here by choice, and I imagine most are happy. The people who I know that don't have kids at this age, my cohort, but wanted them badly, are pretty sad about it. Some have made their peace, but it could be an unfulfilled dream for others. It all depends on perspective. Story 42, amazing. Married almost 35 years. Last winter's vacation was 10 weeks in NZ. WOT, it's a huge regret, but I really didn't want to be a single parent, and I never found a life partner. I was pregnant once, but I made a choice. No judgment on single parents, but my parents were married and mid to upper middle class. I have a much younger sibling, and I realize it's a lot of work, even with a partner and resources, logistics, pickups, days off school, extracurricular. When do single parents sleep, I couldn't imagine doing it without a partner and resources, which I didn't have in my 20s. In my 40s, I did have resources, and I seriously considered adoption. But then I realized that I wanted the whole deal with a husband, not just a kid. I felt I would lose more than I would gain if I did it alone. Accent, logistics, especially dating single as a single parent. I'll never know if that's true. But when I decided I wasn't going to have children, I made a decision to do the things I would not be able to do, or at least not as easily with children whenever possible. For hunter dinner for myself, gala tickets, 2-week tour of Europe, and any other thing within reason. Children are expensive, so I might as well spend the money on myself. Do I still cry over it sometimes? Sure. Having a husband and children was my life goal. I actually didn't have career goals until recently, but I can't change it. So since you only live once, I'm going to enjoy it in a new way. Oh, and my neighbors have great kids. I get to play with them and send them home when I'm done, which is great. Story 43, I have 2 grown kids. And let me tell you, the worry and fear for their future in this up world never give me a moment of peace. And I'm one of the lucky ones who can pass some financial help on to them. Though I love them endlessly, I can't criticize any of you for choosing to be child-free. Watching your kids suffer for any reason is a special kind of. Story 44 feels great. I work a long week, and yesterday, Saturday, I got out of bed at 11 a.m. I decided I wanted chocolate cake, so I made one that afternoon. For dinner, I sat with my wife, and we ate a great frozen Detroit-style pizza. drank some good rum together, then ate chocolate cake with chocolate ice cream. We both played Fallout 4 and went to bed sometime between 11 and 12. We have never had the urge for kids, and neither of us regret not having any. Doing whatever you want whenever you want is fairly attractive. Story 45, probably the exact same way it feels for people of any age without offspring, LOL. I mean, like someone else said, liberating, freedom, not much to worry about. Story 46, if asked, I always say I've got the right number of kids. I cracked that rather poor joke thousands of times, and everybody gets it. Parents sometimes agree in front of their kids, very pleased with the result. I also have a hereditary degenerative condition that usually does not appear until your 40s, so I'm pleased I didn't pass that to anybody else. Story 47, I am 45, my sister, 40, has 3 kids, and my brother, 46, has 2. They're pretty happy, and I am as well. I like kids, but knew I would not have family support to help me, nor a job that would adequately support a family, and didn't have the right partner during those childbirthing years. All those things would have driven me into poverty if I had kids. Thankfully, I never wanted kids. My life never felt like it would fit. I like my nieces and nephews and my friends' kids. I like spending time with them, but relieved it's not me. Story 48, the best decision of my life. My father dumped me when I was 3. He wanted a boy instead of girl. He got 2 boys from his second marriage and was an amazing dad to them while hiding alimonies and erasing me out of his life. Men like this should never reproduce. Bad genetics, no empathy, so I deliberately stopped his genes on me. At least he won't continue himself through me. Story 49, I am early 50s. Children just didn't happen for me, unfortunately. As with most things in life, feelings change around this. For the most part, when I'm content and at peace with it all. There are times, however, when I look forward and all I can see is loss. I don't mean that to sound depressing. I think for people with children, for the most part, and in the usual course of events, the loss we experience as adults in middle age to old age parents, friends, etc., is tempered with the milestones that children go through: school, college, becoming adults, and then having their own children. This balances the loss. Life takes on new patterns, new firsts, new joys, always something to keep you looking forward. Without children, I sometimes feel that balance is lost. I think this hit me when a parent was critically ill. The realization that for me, in the ordinary course of events, if the same thing happens to me at their age, I will likely be experiencing it alone. In other ways, I also think that there's freedom of sorts, as many have pointed out on here. Children often bring vast amounts of worry and stress well into their own adulthood. Your heart is always at much greater risk of being ripped to pieces. I am a worrier and a huge overthinker. I think the worry I would have had around my own children would have potentially destroyed my mental health. I would have struggled to experience the joy through the fog of constant worry. Story 50, kind of weird OP. On our family, we couldn't have kids, and we feel kind of alone, if that makes sense. On our friends group, we are the couple with no kids. It's a bit weird, don't get me wrong. I know the benefits, especially money-wise, but you just wanted to share a different perspective from a couple that wanted but couldn't have kids. Story 5140's Dink here. On Thursday, we decided we'd spend the weekend visiting a bunch of wineries, 30 minutes to research online, booked a hotel, left immediately after work on Friday, and made it happen. Now we're back home Sunday night, sitting on the couch watching some horror movies while drinking stuff we picked up. Work week starts again tomorrow, and I'll wake up 15 minutes before I need to leave, probably slightly hung over, no regrets. Story 52, I was bored today and didn't feel great BC of allergies. I woke up and got in my hot tub with coffee. Then I made and ate Vietnamese spring rolls. Feeny drank coffee and played a few games. Then I started cooking dinner around 1. I decided I needed to get some yeast to bake bread for dinner. While I was at the store, limes were on sale, and I decided I'd make margaritas and bake bread. Then I got in the hot tub with a margarita. Then I relaxed for a while, fed my animals, and had company share my margaritas for about an hour. Then they left, and I ate dinner and watched whatever I wanted on TV. I get to do whatever I want when I want, and I wouldn't change a thing. Story 53, wonderful. I slept in, had a nice breakfast, and now I'm working on getting my little race car ready for next season. I have never regretted my decision to be child-free. Story 54, pretty great. We get to stay up late, sleep in, travel, eat whatever however we want. Not that people with kids don't do those things, but we don't have to negotiate who gets to sleep in or try to balance several different palates every time we make a meal. We live in close proximity to my sister's kids, and the neighbor kids call us Annie and Uncle too. It's great to be kid adjacent, a trusted adult in their orbits watching them grow and sending them home. We are great at parenting in small doses like 4 to 72 hours and love having a silent home to recover in after we send them back. Story 55, you ever go to a friend's house and play with their dog all day, and when you get home you're like, that was fun, but it's nice to come home to a quiet house. Well, it's like that times 10. Story 56, I'm 24 and don't want children. I like reading these responses. Me personally, I don't feel as if I'd be a good parent. I think I'd be a cool uncle, though.